All right, we got to get right into it. Eric, I went to an 8-year-old, or more specifically, a third grade soccer league game over the weekend. And I guess I'll start with the positives. For those of you who have watched your kids play sports, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. And those of you who have yet to do that, you may not know what I'm talking about, but I'm going to try to capture it for you. It was the most riveting live sporting event I have been to in a decade. It was also left me questioning where we're at as a society. Okay. And I will tell you why. I came, they've set up, they have fields, they have 3 different soccer fields running simultaneously. These are all third graders playing soccer. I guess there might have been some other even younger kids. This particular league goes third grade and down. So, and the games are being refereed by, as far as I can tell, middle school aged kids. Okay, we're on the field refereeing the games. Now, on any of these fields, there was a side where the players and the coaches sat when they were not playing, right? And then I brought a chair to watch, and I'm like, okay, I will set up on the other side from where everybody else, where the players and the coaches are. Apparently, nobody else understood that was a good idea to do, because I was on an island by myself, sitting across. Now, where were the other parents of kids watching this? They were practically sitting in the bench area of the game. Okay. I'm sorry if anybody who I know who's a parent, who's a parent of that I talked to at this. I did try to gently offer some advice, and there was one person that I don't know that I did not gently offer advice to, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But I discovered it was intentional, the seating placement, because their intention while watching this third grade soccer game was to yell instructions at their kid for the duration of the entire match. Anytime their kid got near the ball in the game, they were yelling extremely helpful instructions. And I hope everybody caught the sarcasm, like, kick it, do a big kick, take it up the field, shoot it. And as a coach, I would just like to travel to all of these people's full-time place of business. Okay. And while they are let's say they're, in middle management at some corporate job, when they're talking to their employees, I would like to stand behind them and yell my own set of instructions for what I think they should be doing during the course of the day. And I would like to see if they really enjoy that. Now,
that would be great. I could just see it. Synergy.
This was one level of thing where I completely lost my cool. Was, again, I did not know this person, but there were people aggressively attacking these middle school kids that had come to referee a third grade soccer game
for probably $10 a game or something.
No, I mean, yes, I think they were getting paid something, but who cares?
But not worth getting yelled at by an adult.
Oh my Lord, Eric. Have we lost our minds? What are we doing? What are we doing as a society that we think it's okay to come to any non-professional sporting event. And by the way, I count a lot of NCAA sports as professional sporting events. You come to any non-professional sporting events and harass the person refereeing it. Do these people not understand that we're like just barely hanging on for dear life, like in terms of being able to staff sports things? The coach, as far as I can tell, is a volunteer. The assistant coach is a volunteer, and the referees are almost volunteers.
And they're children.
And the referees are children, and you're yelling at them because you're upset that your interpretation is that they're not enforcing the rules correctly at a third grade soccer game. Just needed to get that off my chest. And you know what? Despite all that, I do have empathy for parents. Like I said, it was gripping. I could feel that I was really emotionally invested in what was happening. But that doesn't mean, just because you're having a strong emotion about something, doesn't mean you can just do whatever you want and behave. Well, I was like really caught up in it. I really care. Like, great, awesome. You love your kids. Good. Doesn't mean you get to behave however you want. You have to, like, there are some facets of decorum in life. And I would like everybody to know that one of them is, don't coach your children. Unless you're actually the coach and circumstantially you've been put into the position of coaching your own child. Don't coach your children, and just be quiet about people that are refereeing a youth sports contest. I did not expect it. I'd only been to summer league swim meets where people were, I didn't observe the same level of, like, first off, you have to be really a special level of crazy to yell instructions to your kid while they're trying to swim, because there's no chance they're going to hear anything you have to say. Right?
Those are the best.
Right? There's no chance. Like, believe me, guys, coaches, if we do yell stuff sometimes. That's us also being crazy. But if we could communicate with kids during a race, we'll be the first one to tell you. But it's
really just for us. I mean, they recognize sound. I mean, it's audible, like the roar of a crowd as a swimmer, as most of the people who listen to this podcast know. But the reality is, unless you are in the end lane, you cannot make out anything.
No. You just hear nothing, and then nothing, and then like.
And if you're screaming specific details, as a former backstroker, if you are screaming specific details to a backstroker, you are a moron who does not understand water and the density of it.
Oh yeah, well, backstroke is a special one, right? Because theoretically your ears will be filled with water the entire time if you're doing it right?
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be right there.
You don't even have that moment where your head comes up.
Yeah, like, even if they aren't, like, you can kind of get a little bit of the roar of your teammates off the wall, provided you're breaking out right around the flags. But anything beyond that, you have to be in the end lane, and all you see is like this, and then, the occasional like this, as in, do the propulsive phase of that leg movement, that word that starts, I don't want to use the K word, because I don't want to get you upset. And
it's
I know
a four-letter word, Eric.
Joel will feel it when I say it. Literally, figuratively, a four-letter word. I'm sorry for you, Chris, that you had to go through all of that at a third grade soccer game that was being refereed by middle schoolers who just love the game of soccer, and they just want to help, and they probably are making a little bit of extra money so they can go to a movie or like
Right.
buy something nice for themselves.
Right.
Ugh.
To end this thing on a positive note, because I actually did have a good time overall. And sorry, I had to get in a shouting match with the guy who was yelling at the referee because I could not take it. But to end things on a positive note, there was a elderly gentleman standing in the middle of all these fields, and I observed all three of these middle school referees come up to him before the game started, and then when they called halftime in all the games, they all returned to him, and then I was within earshot of him. And this guy spent the entire halftime period he had watched all three games, he'd observed all three referees, he had specific feedback for every single one of them. He started all of their feedback by pointing out 3 or 4 things that he observed them doing that were really good. And he just was like, he coached his butt off. So I'm just watching him. It was like a tour de force in coaching for 5 or 6 minutes. And they all walk away. And I just walked up to him and I said, you have to have been or are a coach. And he was like, yeah, I coached soccer for 30 years and I've been a referee for 35 years. And I just said, like, well, I'm sorry, I listened in on that. Incredible job. Like coaching those kids. You were incredible. And he's like, yeah, thanks. So there is hope in this world. there are some extremely good people involved in youth sports. Youth sports, there's nothing inherently wrong with youth sports. But gosh, it was a rude awakening to the state that things are in terms of just our sort of basic human decency around something that nominally like should just be kids playing a game, having fun.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Just be thankful that you don't have to spend any time amongst the parents in the swim stands. As some of my former sane parents would tell me, the things that they would hear, the things that they would see. And you could see them from down on deck, just absolute chaos between some people's ears for 4 hours.
Yeah, I mean, to broaden the conversation about this, again, I don't want to feel like I want to be very pointed how I feel about the behavior. What I've observed, because I always, when I see somebody really acting out in a way that I think is totally inappropriate, there is a part of me that wants to understand why they're behaving that way. I don't want to excuse the way they're behaving that way, but I want to understand. Man, I can see, and I do feel it as well as a parent of young kids, this overwhelming pressure. I'm under stress in all these other parts of my life. And one of the most pointed pieces of stress is this constant nagging, like, is my child, measuring up to other children? Are they behind? Are they ahead on various milestones? This, that, and the other. It's totally normal to feel that. And I think some of it has definitely gotten supercharged, especially in the age of social media. And so you're just thinking like, gosh, I just want the best for my kid. And I think that level of pressure and insecurity can boil over and lead you to behave like a total maniac, and really all it is that you care a lot about your kids and you want the best for them. But man, let's address that separately. Like, let's find a way to address the life pressures and mental health of people with young children in away from the sporting world, and maybe it will take some of the pressure off of what we see at youth sports. So Eric is here. Sorry, I didn't gotten all the way. I promised I would get very deep into this podcast before I introduced you, and here you are.
People heard me in the
People heard
meantime,
you. They
so
know you're here.
so they knew I was here. They didn't
Yeah.
know. Yeah, they didn't know probably that Joel is away today.
Joel is he's dealing with an HR issue. I think we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
So he's been in communication with our HR department, and that's sort of, there's a process there, and it's working its way through the process, and we hope to have it resolved and have him back.
It used to be called an action plan. I don't know what HR calls it anymore, but for those of you who are wondering,
I always heard it called an improvement plan. I guess it depends on who's the one that's been commissioned to do stuff in any given HR situation. So the big thing I want to talk to you, Eric, about today was the USA Swimming State of the Sport came out. This is something that is sort of an annual right for me to read, and then I love to dive in. When they have the convention in a month, there'll be a more detailed budget. Again, for me, like I kind of skip past all of the political fluff and get to the pie chart that tells me where the money's coming from and where it's being spent. So I want to devote some time to that. But what was your reaction? I sent this to you, and what was your initial reaction to seeing the state of the sport report?
There was a lot of vague language in it. I thought some of the stuff was nice to hear, I guess, in terms of some of the things that are going on. But by and large, a lot of generalizations, a lot of vague statements, a lot of these little things here or there, but not a lot of substance in terms of, and maybe there's, again, more to come in terms of that. They can really only say so much. I don't know. I'm just a little bit frustrated as you are, as we talked about earlier before all this, that as it has been in the past, it's like, it's all well and good, but let's see it implemented, and then let's actually communicate that implementation. I've never really seen a ton of that, because maybe there's always been a lack of follow through with a lot of this stuff, and maybe the new staff, is the conversation that I've had with some specific people, are going to be there to actually hold their feet to the fire. Brendan Hansen is one of those, really trying to make sure that things are followed through on. So kind of an ombudsman, if you will. So
I will. You bring up Brendan Hansen. I just have to mention he has been invited to appear on this podcast, and so far has not responded to that invitation. Now, I did say to him my standard disclaimer to any USA Swimming employee, and I'm serious about this, is, given the fact that I've often been critical of them, and I have heard from employees that they did not, that whoever their superior was did not want them to appear, that should, before he answers me, he should check to see. But I've not heard from him, but I would like to be able to bring him on here and ask him about some of that stuff, because he has become somebody that you can never, from afar, you can never quite tell what area of responsibility various people in the USA Swimming organization have. But I just keep on hearing things that, and then they say like, oh yeah, Brendan Hansen's running that, and he's running that, and he's running that, so all of a sudden he seems to have become the go-to for a lot of things. He's wearing a lot of hats over there with the way that they have reorganized. And I would be really curious to find out what all those hats are and what's going on.
Yeah.
You too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know more than me, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken to him. It was at Summer Nationals, and I got a bit of a background. He didn't get too into the weeds on anything in particular, but it was definitely one of those things. Is I would assume many of our 7 listeners know that he was a club coach. You know, coaching at Austin Swim Club. One of the most hated things. If you ever run into Brendan, you want to trigger him, bring up tags, um, also known as the Texas Age Group World Championships. And he can't stand it. You know, their team did well enough at tags, but they did way better at juniors. He was always about that development side, and that's what he's taking to heart in a lot of this. Is that we've really missed the boat on supporting our 10 and under coaches, and there needs to be more done about that. And it would have been nice to see some of that language, but I know Hinchy only has so much space to be able to put into a state of swimming, and maybe that would be a talking point later on. We'll see. But if you're going to build the base, you got to support the base with program.
Okay, so I did read Hinchy's preamble to all of this, and it really has 2 pieces to it. There's a bunch of, as you say, extremely vague language with this quote, keeping athletes first. And I think we'll talk about that more later, because it's not defined at all within. He writes what the heck that means. It just seems to be something that sounds nice, but I don't see it reflected in the rest of what's presented. And to me, it seems to only go skin deep as a sort of PR motto for something. And then the second piece is, sorry, there's actually 3 pieces. The second piece is we did an audit and we're the best NGB, which is the national, the annual drumbeat of USA Swimming, which I always find funny because I don't really think it's saying much to say that you're the best NGB. When you look at the problems that many national governing bodies in sports have had, I really actually don't think it's something to be proud of to say that you're the best NGB. But regardless, I guess that's the category you're in. I'm also the tallest person in my immediate family, and someone out there is the least corrupt politician in North Korea. So we got all sorts of categories out there. What was, and then finally actually the third part that he did put in here is that they're not losing money. So it was, of course, a brutal couple of years with the pandemic. They have done a tremendous amount of reorganization, sort of fiscally, operationally, and they actually made a surplus in the Olympic year. I think they're always counting on a surplus in an Olympic year. I'm gonna look at this chart again for the way the quads are mapped out, but on that level, in terms of their financial health, that is good news. Any other impressions besides the ones I just listed from the Hinchy piece?
No, I just, and maybe the information is out there. I haven't looked at the quad plan, even though in the past I've seen the numbers and what they're expecting. It just would have been nice to see what they were expecting in terms of losses,
right?
Like specifically during the pandemic. Interestingly enough, there was a net surplus of $3+ million in 2020, which was wow. So despite not having a lot of money in certain circumstances coming in, they obviously had almost no costs. So and then obviously all the other stuff, and we'll talk about it, is like where the money is going.
Let's get into the pie chart. Do you think I should share the screen and put this pie chart up?
It's public information
for everybody. Yeah. Well, let's do that. Oh gosh, I have to open. Sorry, I'm not prepared. I have a new computer, everybody. Enjoy the new technology, but I haven't enabled Zoom to share a screen yet. So you're just going to have to tolerate us describing this. I'm looking at a pie chart, and I guess a version of a pie chart. This is a two ringed chart. The inner ring has all the revenue broken into various categories from USA Swimming. So the overwhelming majority of USA Swimming's revenue, and this is always true, and no surprise, comes from membership. Okay, so some combination of membership fees, the fees that you pay when you sign up to be a member of USA Swimming. And then I'm assuming also various other, stuff. So if you attend a USA Swimming event, that's probably counted under membership revenue. And then you have 13% of their revenue comes from marketing, partnership marketing. So, essentially companies that choose to advertise through USA Swimming or sponsor USA Swimming events. You have 15% from the USOPC, the US Olympic and Paralympic Committee, and then you have 10% other. And it's actually the whatever the scan of the document that I'm reading is so low res that I can't make out what other is. Okay, so then we go to the outside. So remember, the big number to remember is that 62% of revenue comes from membership. How is that money spent? It's actually, there's sort of 4 big categories, or I should say 5 big categories, and then 1 little one. 25% on the national team. Okay, and I'm assuming that covers both sponsorship of national level athletes, the costs around national level events, international teams, etc. 16% on sport development. What do you think goes under the sport development category? This is something I was thinking about reading it.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a general statement.
Right.
It would be nice again, where if there's an accompanying document somewhere that spells this out.
We will get a month. We'll get the line item, like the full budget line item to look at.
Because I can only imagine. I'm just curious as far as like, does the sport development salaries fall under that, or is that under like business operations, or like where? Like so, that's that 16%, is that just paying people to go from place to place and present on the information USA Swimming has, or is that actual development?
Well, the number that I will be looking for, Eric, and I've looked over the USA Swimming budgets in the past, and the thing I always compare is how much money they are spending on staffing USA Swimming as an organization, and then how much money they're actually spending on athletes. Because remember, we're keeping athletes first. And I really want to see whether they're putting their money where their mouth is with that. Because, I'm not saying that USA Swimming could operate without staff, or that there's not need to have staff at USA Swimming, but the point is the athletes and what they're doing. Like, that's the whole point of everything. And if the spending on staff continues to outstrip spending on athletes, and by the way, that's just really like a very, very small amount of high level athletes. And when you look at the other side of this chart, okay, the vast majority of people who are paying under this 62% membership will probably not, they certainly won't experience much except watching the national team that they spend 25% being spent on.
And then there's got to be some gray area. You talk about it in terms of most of this going towards the national team. How much the 16% of event operations, how much of that is going to junior nationals and above?
Well,
Uh,
I would guess a lot. I mean,
yeah,
USA Swimming event operations, I guess, would be junior nationals, US Open, futures championships, and
yeah,
pro series.
yeah. And then keep in mind too that any brand name that's attached to it, that brand is paying to be the sponsor of those events. So
Right.
that money,
And the members are also paying to
yeah.
attend the
So
event.
so the national team is 25%, but how much of the event operations at the national level versus anything less than that, even at the sectional level, which there's a significant amount. I mean, being a sectional host, I think the last time I remember hearing, it's at least 10,000 seed money to be able to host a sectional meet. There's a lot that goes into it. You essentially have to rent a university's pool to be able to host a sectional meet. Like it's really kind of a foregone conclusion if you're going to be able to support comfortably 500, 600, 700, 800, even up to 1,000 athletes at a sectional meet. You need a big facility that charges a lot of money. But
And could anyone quantify, again, when you bring up membership for any given competition, how much volunteer labor, what the cost of all the volunteer labor provided by membership to run such a competition is? And I do think, like, at national level competitions, officials are paid, or are they also volunteer?
From my experience and seeing even at sectionals, there are opportunities where a zone can subsidize, but at the very least is paying for expenses. So getting to a pool and stuff like that. But a lot of those people are flat out just volunteering time to
even if they were getting paid, in order to get their officiating black belt, to be to work their way up the ladder to officiate at a national level meet, they had to have put in like hundreds of hours volunteer
it's
officiating.
A lot of time. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's 25% national team, 16% sport development, whatever that is. We'll find out, I guess, when we look at more detailed. 16% event operations. I guess I had put some of those event operations under national team, but really national team maybe just covers some of the international sort of events.
Probably the junior camps, the national camps, the junior trips.
Here's a big one. Insurance, technology, and business operations, 21%.
Business operations.
Well, I also would like to know, and I guess we'll find out, how much is insurance, how much is technology, how much is business operations? Is it 20% insurance, 0.5% technology, and 0.5%? I'm just throwing random numbers out there. I don't know anything.
I know the technology one. They brought on the new website in 2020. So
then now they have a new website.
They have, but we don't know if it's a new website. They have a new app. The website itself, we don't know if it's just going to be like new, or if it's going to just be they're paying money to make it functional.
Right.
And it's really just going to be the same skin, but things are going to work a little bit better, which would be fantastic in and of itself. Because I don't know if anybody's ever navigated some of the information that's in there, but when you go to find a team, there are situations where you can't put Austin, Texas, because nothing comes up, I think. But if you put Austin TX, it does come up. And like there are certain situations and circumstances where you can't just click a button, or you can't hit return. You have to click the button. And it's like, it's just
everything on that website is a couple steps short of what you would expect from a functional website in 2022. It looks okay. That's probably the best thing you can say about its functionality, because every other thing, and I know where I haven't even dug into the whole new swims database and all that stuff. I still think they have functionalities that they could have programmed in there probably 15,
I
16 years ago.
I lost patience. I lost patience actually, and went to swam to find the state of swimming.
Oh, right.
Article.
Yeah.
I
I did the
actually-
same thing because
I
it's like,
I tried to find it. I lasted all of about 30 seconds. It just went over to swam.
I was doing this yesterday. I was trying to post to social media. Shout out to Jersey Wahoos. We had 2 swimmers named to the national junior team. Was trying to post to our team social media about it, and I was trying to make my way to the internal USA swimming announcement of it, because I didn't want to post link to the swam announcement of the USA swimming announcement. I wanted to go to the original source, and boy, was it a long trip. And it did not find it internally through navigating USA Swimming's website. I found it when I found somebody else's social media post and then used that link. But like finding it just by loading usaswimming.org, I could have been there all day. This is seemingly like giant news, right? Within their, like the only thing that they had to announce for a few days, but nope. Then there's something called int comma L dev. I guess I don't know if that's
International development.
international or internal. Like, does USA Swimming, the organization that their mandate is swimming in America, do they do international development?
I think
Why would
There's
they
gotta
be
be
concerned
something
with
that-
swimming somewhere else in the world?
I don't know. Maybe they're paying into something that they have to as an NGB, as far as helping like the refugee teams or people from other countries that, to kind of help them.
It's obvious, awfully idealistic of you, Eric,
I
but I'd
know.
love to
I
find out what
just
it is.
can't imagine that they wouldn't be able to type the entire word in internal.
Yeah.
Why they would put, and that's kind of the standard US based English language for international, the INT apostrophe L development. So if that is internal development, wouldn't that just be considered business operations at that
Right.
point? So again, I'm cautiously optimistic that they're trying to help the refugee teams have suits and goggles.
Right. Okay. So here's my last. Now again, it's been a long time since I took math, and anybody that works in marketing or development, jump in the comment section of this and set me straight if I'm wrong about this. But as I'm looking at this chart, they're spending 16% of their revenue, of their budget on marketing. This says partnerships, marketing and comms. Okay. Now, 13% of their revenue is partnership marketing. So to me, those are sort of the same category. So let's just say your revenue and your budget were exactly the same. I know they're not exactly the same. They're fairly close to each other. If you were spending 16% of $100 million, let's just say that's not at all what their revenue or budget is, but just for the purposes of math, you were spending 16% of $100 million on marketing, and your intake on marketing was $13 million. Isn't that sort of saying you found a way to turn $16 million into $13 million?
You're not wrong.
Like, is that good? Again, somebody set me straight in the comment section. If you work in marketing or development, is it a good thing when your marketing brings less money into your organization than you spend on it?
Yeah, that doesn't, because if you're telling me that partnership marketing commerce that you're spending into the USA Swimming Foundation.
Right.
Okay. In 17 to 22, maybe there was a bigger influx into that because of COVID, the amount of payments that that they were kind of making out to club teams in order to continue to float and not just use the PPP loans, but to have something else there too. I would be hopeful that that's the case, but it does not look good when you're spending, if those numbers are equal, you're spending more than you're bringing in on the same category. It's not, doesn't seem to be an effective use of dollars.
It seemed like the whole point of marketing spending would be to bring in more money so you could have more money for other things. But that's just me.
Those numbers should be flipped. A net positive.
I feel like one of those people criticizing U.S. politicians for running a budget deficit. You know, in my business, we have to pay our debts every year, not the government. You know, I'm willing to be wrong, but I don't think I am in this way. Eric, you got any final rants you need to let out before we wrap this one?
You know, I just
anything grinding your beans anywhere?
You know, before I left coaching, that was one of my biggest gripes was, where's it all going? I'm not seeing it. There was this huge, and for those of you who are around for it, I mean, it was the mid 2015 or something like that. It was whenever USA Swimming sold us the line of, here these increases in membership fees over these next few years, and they had this very pretty document of, here's where the money is going. And I never saw it personally. I never got the email as in like, here are the boxes that we have checked on this. You know, you're waiting for these very general statements. So if you have this plan that we have here, next fall, let's produce a document that just literally communicates the boxes that you checked on this pie in the sky plan for the next shortened quad, whatever it is. That's always the big thing that I looked at and look at this NGB is communicate. Just really put it out there. And for those of you who say, well, they do communicate it, they may say this or they may say that. It's like, I didn't see it come across my email inbox. I didn't see my sport development person come through and just shoot me an email and be like, here are the places where we've done a lot of this work. I was on the age group committee. I went through those meetings at USAS, and sitting through the same meeting every year and hearing the same thing about following the USA Hockey model of development, and this is what we're going to do. And it was literally Groundhog's Day to the weekend every year for at least 3 years. This is the plan, but there was never any progress on it. So, you know, I just want.
The only reason you knew it was the plan was because you were sitting in that meeting.
Yeah, because I happened to be at convention. So I am very. I guess I'll lean towards cautious optimism because of some of the people that are in and are a part of this. You know, we talked about Brennan Hansen, Dana Skelton. I think I'm saying that right. She's a fantastic. Is a fantastic 10 and under coach, and she's a part of that whole entire program. And I really hope that they take some of her best qualities and her strengths, and that trickles down to our clubs. You know, they're making this investment in the current staff that they have. If they don't utilize them really well, this is going to be another failure of age group development and building the base. And it's still just going to look at, based on this graph, that all of this money is going there, going to USA Swimming to win gold medals. Yeah, it's important, but most of those people that you are servicing, quote unquote, are never going to be on TV in any way, shape, or form unless they're in the stands. So I'm skeptical, but I'm leaning towards that cautious optimism because of the couple of people that I know that are now in there and are going to be doing hopefully some of that work and holding the exec's feet to the fire.
Well, which brings me to my final point, which I guess I'm going to hammer this home a second time, because if anybody's listening and knows Brendan Hansen or any other person at USA Swimming, I'm serious about an invite to come on here. Despite all the jokes we make, this podcast actually does have a listenership in the thousands. Somewhere around 5,000 people download it monthly. I would venture to guess that many of them are members of USA Swimming. So I will help you communicate. Like, don't, I actually will give you a venue to communicate what you want. You might have to answer a couple hard questions about what it is, but if you know what you're doing, you shouldn't be scared of that. And, let's actually try a new communication strategy, because the one that you have has not been working for a very long time. In my lifetime in USA Swimming, it has not been working. And despite whatever expense you may have there in terms of comms, and whatever you think you're communicating, it's not being heard. And it is hard to communicate in 2022. It is hard to get your message out there about something and break through to people, but let's try.
It's also never been easier.
It's also never been
It's
easier.
incredibly difficult, but it's never been easier.
If you know what you're doing. Eric, thanks for coming on. Thank you everybody for listening. If you're watching the YouTube version of this, let me know what you think of the new technology. Is it better? I'm sitting at an awkward angle from my desk so I can get a different background. Do you like that? Interact with us in the comments about it. Eric will be sure to get back to you. I'll notice in a few days.
Yeah,
maybe.
And if you like what you hear and like what you see, make sure you like and subscribe and share with your coaching friends.
Thank you. Also, check out Christy Coach on Instagram. Okay, new Instagram feed that lots of people out there are enjoying. Christy_coach. Thank you, and we'll see you again next week.
Thanks, Chris.